Crassus made his army watch. In Plutarch's account, 50 soldiers died by lot. Ancient writers credited fear. By the end, name one action still yours and commit to it without denying fear. Those 50 did not come from the whole army at random. Mummius had disobeyed an order not to fight. His force was defeated, and many men threw away their arms and fled. Plutarch says he divided 500 into 50 tens, 1 death per 10. But the lots were not his first measure. 50 is Plutarch's figure, and it is worth knowing that it is his alone. Appian counts differently. 2 whole consular legions decimated, and in a second version he preserves the entire army and some 4,000 dead, 50 men or 4,000. The gap is the size of the story. The setup around it is steadier. Spartacus had beaten Roman armies repeatedly. Plutarch says the Senate took the war off the consuls and gave it to Crassus. Crassus sent Mummius on a wide circuit with 2 legions to watch the enemy, under strict orders not to engage. Mummius engaged. He lost men, and Plutarch says the survivors saved their lives at the cost of their arms, and Crassus put the death penalty on the flight, not on the defeat. Mummius, whose disobedience caused it, he only rebuked. Every man in that 500 was there because of something he had already done. The lottery did not decide guilt, it decided which of 10 guilty men died. Keep that separation. It is the one you will need when your own turn comes. What put you here, what chance now decides, and what is still left to do. And now the measure that actually came first. Before Plutarch describes the lots, he says Crassus rearmed the soldiers and demanded security that they would keep their weapons. Why record both measures? Plutarch makes the punishment public. His wording stresses disgrace, horror, and the presence of the army.
The ancient Roman punishment of decimation, where ignominy is added to the penalty of death, with a variety of appalling and terrible circumstances presented before the eyes of the whole army, assembled as spectators.
Plutarch. Read what he selects, not the wounds, the audience. An army can execute a man at dawn and announce it later. Crassus built this one to be watched by the same troops who would march out behind him. And one thing he never says, who struck the blow. The familiar picture, the other 9 killing their own 10th man, belongs to no source at all. Polybius, describing the punishment as an institution, has a tribune touch the condemned man with a cudgel, and then the whole camp beats or stones him. Here is the tempting reversal. Fear did not work. It sounds modern and humane. It is also not what the ancient evidence says. Polybius calls decimation a terror-striking remedy. The uncertainty over the fatal lot, he says, worked on all the offenders at once, and he treats that fear as the point of the thing. Appian is blunter still about Crassus. After the punishment, the general had made himself more frightening to his own men than the enemy was. And then, says Appian, the army recovered and won, so fear is source-attested. We do not get to delete it, because a gentler story would land better. Appian is not merely putting one thing after another. He says the punishment is what changed them, but he is writing generations later from an army he never saw, and Plutarch, closer to the record, credits the discipline without ever naming which measure did it. Terror, fresh weapons, shame, a new commander, the drilling that followed. An ancient writer can tell us an army changed and still not know what changed it. So go back to the clause that sits before the lots. Dried in cloth has Crassus make the men find sureties for their arms. Perrin has him take pledges that they would keep their weapons. Plutarch wrote in Greek, and his word covers a guarantor as easily as a promise. What it does not tell us is how the thing was done, or how much weight anyone attached to it. Calling it a private vow, or a Stoic exercise, or the hidden cause of the victory, is us talking, not Plutarch. What the text does hand us is a contrast, and it survives either reading. The lots attached a consequence to running. The security named the behavior to come. hold on to the weapons, one measure aimed at what a man feared, the other aimed at what a man would do, and that second demand is the only one a man could still meet once the lots were drawn. Fear was the price of yesterday, the weapons were tomorrow, and tomorrow was still open. Here history stops and we start. Epictetus had no connection to Crassus's army that we know of. He was born generations after the revolt, spent part of his life enslaved in Rome, was freed and taught at Nicopolis. What survives comes through his student Arrian. The short handbook, the Enchiridion, is the teaching boiled down. It opens on the distinction we need.
Of things, some are in our power and others are not. In our power are opinion, movement towards a thing, desire, aversion, turning from a thing, and in a word, whatever are our acts. Not in our power are the body, property, reputation, offices, and in a word, whatever are not our own acts.
Epictetus. Not in our power does not mean that your body belongs to somebody else. It means that choice cannot guarantee the body, property, reputation or office. Illness, violence, institutions and chance can obstruct them. Epictetus reserves a different status for judgment and action. His list is stricter than the slogan it turned into. He does not sort outcomes into percentages of control. He names judgments and acts as ours, and leaves every external result exposed to obstruction. A chosen action can fail and still be yours. Now hold that beside the 500, without pretending any of them had read a word of it. Their earlier choice had already counted. Plutarch calls the 500 the ones who began the flight. Then Crassus divided them into tens, and from that moment no courage a man had could reach the lot he was about to draw. That was settled elsewhere. What stayed his was narrow and real, if he lived, whether he held on to his weapons the next time. The lot selected an outcome. The security named a behavior. No source says the soldiers saw it that way, and none says the pledge rather than the terror restored them. The distinction is Epictetus's, applied by us, to two demands sitting in one sentence of Plutarch. And it holds even if that security was the most routine thing an army ever did. It does not need a hidden reform behind it. The history supplies the contrast, the philosophy supplies the language, the use is ours. Note what the distinction does not claim, not that causes stop mattering. The flight had consequences, and men died for it. Not that a chosen action is a guarantee. Keeping a shield would not have kept anyone alive. It asks a narrower question. After you name the conditions that already constrain you, what choice still requires your authorship? For a modern person, answering that question is still incomplete. Plutarch's first measure suggests the second move: turn one answer into an observable commitment. Here is the same situation, in a form you will recognize. Your company announces that your unit will close. You can ask questions and you can correct errors, but no amount of worry reverses an issued decision. That is the lot, and it has already been drawn. So write the first list and keep it to what is settled: the announcement, the timetable, the person who signed it. My career is over does not belong on it. That is a forecast wearing the clothes of a fact. The second list is only actions. Request the written criteria. Save the examples of your work. Contact 2 people who have hired in your field. Prepare the next meeting properly. Then do the part almost everybody skips. Pick one and put a name and a clock on it. Tell a colleague, I will send the 2 messages by 9 tomorrow. That is your security for your arms. It buys no job. It makes tomorrow observable. The size matters in both directions, small enough that someone could check it, large enough that doing it moves you. I will be calmer fails on both counts. I will call the advisor at 10 and write down what she says passes, and if the result still depends on her answer, that part was never yours, which is the whole point of keeping the lists apart. Now the harder one. A scan comes back with a result you did not want. Nothing in your attitude edits an image that already exists, but nothing is in my control is just as false. You can write the questions, you can seek qualified medical advice, you can ask whether a second opinion is appropriate, and you can choose who sits beside you when you hear the answer. Put one of them under witness. I will write my 3 questions and send them to the person coming with me by 6. It promises nothing about the outcome. It stops the waiting from making decisions that were never its to make. None of this is a way of caring less. The 2 lists separate what your agency reaches from what it does not, and you can care about both without confusing them. It is also why fear does not break the method. Fear is information about stakes. It sits perfectly well beside a chosen action. The failure is letting it argue that everything is controllable or that nothing is. Plutarch gives the story one last echo, and it lands on Crassus himself. He beat Spartacus in the decisive battle and took the risks personally. Then Pompey met many of the fugitives and cut them down, and wrote to the Senate that Crassus had won a battle while he had finished the war. Plutarch says Pompey took much of the credit. A slave war could not earn a full triumph, so Crassus took the lesser honor, the ovation, and walked his procession on foot. The man who made his army guarantee its weapons could not guarantee what he would be given for the war. He could reach the campaign, he could not reach the glory. If you want ancient philosophy tested against the record instead of quoted at you, subscribe. Next time, Roman tradition later claimed that Carthage sent a captured general home to argue for his own release. It says he stood in the Senate, argued against it, then kept his oath and sailed back to die. A man who talked his own city out of saving him. Polybius, our best source for that war, never tells the story at all. For this episode, choose one. When the situation turns against you, do you keep arguing with the outcome or name the next action?